Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into something pretty amazing, the story of how AI basically conquered language. And it happened so fast, you might have blinked and missed it. So, have you ever really thought about this? How machine translation went from, spitting out complete nonsense to being actually nuanced? It feels like it happened overnight. And if you've used a tool like Google Translate lately, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's shockingly good. But trust me, it wasn't always this way. So how did we get from there to here? Let's break down this massive leap in the tech you probably use all the time. For the longest time, progress in this field was just slow, a real snail's pace. We had this thing called phrase-based statistical MT, and it was king for like a decade. But then, right around the mid-2010s, bam, everything changed. The real revolution, the one we're talking about today, happened in just a handful of years. And it all kicked off with a totally new approach called neural machine translation. Okay, so to really get why this was such a huge deal, we gotta look at what was broken with the old way of doing things. It all came down to one single major problem, a kind of information bottleneck. So the first crack at these neural models was something called seek-to-seek, which stands for sequence to sequence. And the idea was pretty clever, really. It had two parts. You had an encoder, which reads the sentence you put in, and then a decoder, which writes out the translation. Sounds simple enough, right? Well, here's the catch, and it's a big one. The encoder had this, frankly, impossible job. It had to take the entire meaning of a sentence, every bit of nuance, all the context, and squeeze it, cram it, into one single fixed-length mathematical representation. We call it a context vector. That's like trying to distill a whole novel down into one single word. It's just not going to work. And that right there, that's the information bottleneck. It's such a perfect name for it, isn't it? Because the longer and more complex the sentence you fed in, the more meaning just, poof, disappeared. It got lost in that compression. Literally. And this chart, it shows you the problem perfectly. I mean, look at this. For short sentences, 15 words or so, the model did great. But as the sentences get longer, the quality just falls off a cliff. Once you hit 50 words or more, the translation quality is less than 20% of what it should be. It was basically spitting out gibberish. That single vector, that context vector, was the whole problem, a massive bottleneck. Okay, so it was super clear what needed to happen. The model needed a better memory. It needed a way to get around this information bottleneck, instead of trying to force everything through it. And the solution, when it came, was an absolute game changer. It arrived in this groundbreaking 2017 paper with a fantastic title, Attention is All You Need. And this paper introduced the world to the transformer model. See, the old way, the seek-to-seek model, forced the decoder to work from that one tiny, flawed summary. The new way, it was like giving the model a perfect, photographic memory. So what was this new superpower? It was called the attention mechanism. And here's the brilliant part. Instead of just getting that one compressed summary, the decoder could now look back at the entire original sentence, at every single word, and decide for itself which parts were most important for generating the next word of the translation. It could literally pay attention to what mattered, moment by moment. Think about that novel analogy again. Instead of trying to work from one summary sentence, it's like the translator can now flip back to any page, any paragraph, anytime it needs a refresher. It's such a simple, elegant idea, but it changed absolutely everything. It gave the model this dynamic, flexible memory and just obliterated that old information bottleneck. So that's the theory. But what did this actually look like in the real world? Let's talk about the impact, because the results weren't just a little bit better. They were staggering. Yeah, check this out. When Google switched to its new neural models, like GNMT, which use this attention idea, they saw 55 to 85% reduction in translation errors. Think about that. That's not a small step. That's a massive quantum leap forward in quality, almost overnight. But here's a really interesting wrinkle. The accuracy isn't the same for every language, not even close. A study from UCLA in 2021 found that for a language like Spanish, where there's just a ton of data to train on, the accuracy was an incredible 94%, almost human level. But for a low-resource language like Armenian, it was way down at 55%. And that really highlights a key challenge that still exists today. These models are only as good as the data you feed them. And it's not just about general conversation. The model also gets really, really good in specific technical areas. Look at this. For medical translations from English to German, a performance score over 91, or industrial translations to Spanish over 86. To have that kind of precision in a super complex and critical field like medicine, that was pure science fiction just a few years earlier. Okay, but here's where the story gets even bigger. The transformer model wasn't just the end of the translation story. In fact, it was the beginning of a whole new chapter. Because the same tech, that same core idea, is the foundation for the AI revolution we're all living through right now. That's right, that same brilliant attention idea, it's the engine that powers today's massive large language models, the LLMs, like the Gemini family of models. It turns out that the key to unlocking better translation was also the key to unlocking a deeper understanding of language itself. It's just incredible. And this is why it's such a huge deal. Unlike those older, rigid models, these new LLMs are just incredibly flexible. You can talk to them, you can give them instructions, they can adapt to different styles, you can fine-tune them with specific company jargon or terminology. For any business that works globally, this is a total game changer. It means you can create these super high-quality, authentic translation workflows that are perfectly tailored to exactly what you need.
So when you step back and look at the whole journey, from that simple, frustrating bottleneck to this new world of instant, high-quality, and now totally customizable translation, it's just been an incredible ride. The technology that started with the simple goal of translating one sentence is now fundamentally reshaping how we all communicate. Which leaves us with a pretty big question. It's not about if we can break down language barriers anymore. It's about what we're going to build and who we're going to become in a world where they're gone.